Part 52. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 511. Chapter 511. I seem to have done something wrong. Luo Xian went to the bathroom. Xia Ying was waiting for her on the bench outside, her head drooped, thinking quietly about something. Yu Lingfeng walked towards Xia Ying, sat down next to her, patted Xia Ying on the shoulder, and said to her softly, "Don't worry, nothing will happen. Even if something happens, he is still there, so everything will be fine." Xia Ying raised her head, with sadness in her eyes, and whispered, "Yu Lingfeng, sometimes, I feel like I have done something wrong." "What's the matter?" Yu Lingfeng frowned. Xia Ying lowered her head, bit her lower lip tightly, and waited for a while before saying, "I always feel that my parents still love each other. However, because of my so-called willfulness and so-called revenge, that's why they got to where they are today." Previously, when Xia Ying faced Xia Chuanhai, her heart and eyes were filled with only hatred. Because as soon as Xia Ying sees Xia Chuanhai, she can't help but think of things from her previous life. Xia Chuanhai's heartbreaking betrayal to her and her mother in her previous life. Moreover, Xia Ying always felt that Xia Chuanhai must not love Luo Xian. If he really loved her, why did Xia Menjian appear? If he really loved her, why didn't Xia Chuanhai protect Luo Xian in his last life and had endless quarrels with her every day? Moreover, even in Luo Xian's life, after Xian died, before her bones were still cold, she married that Xiao Yanhong without stopping. However, in this rebirth, Xia Ying found that she was gradually wrong. After Xia Chuanhai and Luo Xian separated, Luo Xian was not happy at all. Moreover, Xia Ying also discovered that Xia Chuanhai had never been far away from their mother and daughter's lives. He had been paying attention to them silently. Xia Ying had entered almost every music competition he had participated in, hiding his identity. Xia Ying saw it accidentally once, and Yu Lingfeng also told Xia Ying once. In addition, Xia Ying also heard from the servants at home that she found Xia Chuanhai wandering around the Xia family more than once, always looking up at the home, but never entering. Xia Ying thought, if it wasn't for love, why would Xia Chuanhai do this? However, Xia Ying was confused. Could it be that the so-called butterfly effect allowed Xia Chuanhai, who was a scumbag in the previous life, to be cleansed? In his last life, he was obviously so selfish and indifferent. He only had Xiao Yanhong and his daughter in his eyes, and he did not hesitate to be cruel to Xia Ying and her daughter for their sake. Why is he so affectionate towards Xia Ying and his daughter in this life? Xia Ying didn't know the reason, but she knew one thing: she made the wrong move in this game. Yu Lingfeng sighed slightly, "Although I don't know the reason why you did that before, I have reminded you more than once that your father has always loved you and your mother. Not only in this life, but also in the previous life, he has always loved you." When Xia Ying heard Yu Lingfeng's words, tears filled her eyes and fell down with a snap. If something really happened to Xia Chuanhai, Xia Ying would probably never be able to forgive herself in her lifetime. Yu Lingfeng held Xia Ying in his arms, stroked Xia Ying's long hair, and said to her, "Don't be sad, he will be fine." Luo Xian just walked out of the bathroom and bumped into the assistant. Luo Xian was stunned for a moment. The assistant handed Luo Xian a key and said, "Madam, if you really want to visit the chairman, you can come over at night." End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 512. Chapter 512. They are waiting for him to die. Luo Xian was stunned for a moment, staring at him in surprise. The assistant explained, "Madam, we are also responsible, so there is no way to let you in now. I have already said hello to the people in the evening. They will not let you in. You can just use this key to go in and see the chairman." "Yes, but you must be very careful not to disturb him." Lugo Xian stretched out his hand and took the key like a ghost. The assistant walked away, and Lugo Xian was still staring blankly at the key in his hand. Lugo Xian has been asking herself repeatedly in her heart, do you want to go and take a look? But so what if I just looked at it? Can she feel at ease just by looking at it? When I first arrived, I heard the nurse say that Xia Chuanhai was still in a coma. He had been in a coma for a long time. Lugo Xian held the key in his hand and had a firm idea in his heart. When Lugo Xian came out, she saw Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying on the bench. 11 Jews stood aside, stealing glances at Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng from time to time. Mom. When Xia Ying saw Lugo Xian, she immediately got out of Yu Lingfeng's arms and walked towards Lugo Xian. Xia Ying noticed that Lugo Xian's eyes were red. Although there was a proper smile on his face, the look in his eyes could not be deceiving. She had just gone to the bathroom for so long, she must have been crying. Sakura, since we can't see anyone, let's go back. In order to prevent Xia Ying from noticing anything was wrong with her, Lugo Xian forced a bitter smile, then stretched out her hand towards Xia Ying, preparing to take her home. Xia Ying also saw through it but didn't say anything. She pretended not to know anything and left the hospital with Lugo Xian. It took a long time to get rid of the media and reporters before Xia Ying and the others got into the car. While in the car, Lugo Xian kept looking out the window, feeling very out of sorts. Xia Ying looked at Lugo Xian's profile, leaned on Lugo Xian's arm, and whispered, Mom, don't worry, he will get better, and God will bless him. Lugo Xian didn't speak, just nodded. After arriving home, Lugo Xian also locked himself in the bedroom. At this time, Xia Ying's cell phone rang. It was Chu Shenxiu's call. As soon as Xia Ying pressed the answer button, Chu Shenxiu's loud voice immediately sounded like thunder. Cousin Xia Ying, I read the news on the internet that my uncle is sick, are you okay? It's okay, Big Turtle Dove, please tell your family not to worry too much, and don't believe the nonsense written by the media on the internet. Xia Ying now has a headache when she sees those things. They still don't know what kind of disease Xia Chuanhai has, but rumors have begun to spread on the internet that Xia Chuanhai has lymphoma. It's really not a big deal to spread rumors. What is lymphoma? It's an almost incurable terminal disease. If Xia Chuanhai really gets this disease, he will really be helpless. In short, the news about Xia Chuanhai is being reported all over the internet. There were even some unscrupulous media waiting at the entrance of Imperial Hospital day and night. They were waiting for Xia Chuanhai to die and then reported the exclusive news of his death. Sometimes, this society is so terrifying and cold-blooded. Yu Lingfeng glanced at Xia Ying, and then said, if you are worried, I can help you take a look. Xia Ying looked up at Yu Lingfeng, is that okay? Nothing is wrong. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 513. Chapter 513 Xioxin, don't leave. At night, Lugo Xian thought about it and finally decided to go out. She told Xia Ying that she was going to attend a tea party with her sisters. Xia Ying nodded without thinking too much. After Lugo Xian went out, she drove straight towards the Imperial Capital Hospital. Lugo Xian's thoughts were confused along the way, and she didn't know what she was doing now or what she was doing. Xia Chuanhai had clearly made it clear that no one was allowed to come to visit. Now she went there secretly just to take a look at him. What was she planning? Lugo Xian had already reached her destination before she could think clearly about anything. Because the assistant had explained the relationship with the gatekeepers in advance, they saw Lugo Xian without any obstruction, and Lugo Xian successfully opened the door with the key and entered. The lights in the ward were turned off, Xiaochuanhai closed his eyes and lay quietly in the luxurious private ward falling asleep. The room was very quiet, so quiet that Luo Xian could hear Xiaochuanhai's clear and even breathing, as well as his own chaotic beating heartbeat. Luo Xian cautiously approached Xiaochuanhai and sat down on the stool next to him. Luo Xian raised her head and looked at Xiaochuanhai's hanging bottle through the moonlight shining in from the curtains, which was dripping quietly and evenly. Luo Xian's eyes slid from Xiaochuanhai's eyebrows to his lips. He has not changed at all. Even though he is seriously ill and is in the hospital, his facial features and the aura exuding from him have not changed at all. Luo Xian looked at him, as if she could still see the beating heart of her teenage years. At that time, Luo Xian, like other girls, was obsessed with boys who could play basketball and wear clean white shirts, and whose smiles were as warm as the sun in the past. Every time Luo Xian passed by the basketball court with a group of girlfriends, she would see Xiaochuanhai, the boy who knew how to play basketball and was always calling her name, smiling at her and saying he liked her. How many girls liked him at that time? Luo Xian once saw him throw a drawer full of love letters into the trash can, then leave all the chocolate and milk biscuits and secretly stuff them into her drawer. At that time, Luo Xian was thin-skinned. Whenever people around him would coax her into agreeing to be with him, she would blush and leave quickly. Then he didn't feel angry, and after punching the man who was making noises, he followed Luo Xian with a low smile, watching her walk to the girls' dormitory, and then he went home alone with the slanting shadow of the setting Sunday. Luo Xian never knew how much Xiaochuanhai had gone through behind her during her 4 years in college. She only remembered that when she agreed to date him on the day of graduation, he, who had never drank, was so drunk that he couldn't stop him and was sent to the hospital in the end. On the first day we were together, Xiaochuanhai said to her, "Xiao Xian, life is very long, and I want to walk with you to the end. Life is short, and I can only love you enough." Luo Xian's eyes reddened unconsciously when she thought of these past events. A drop of warm tears fell on the back of Xiaochuanhai's hand, and Xiaochuanhai moved his fingers. Luo Xian saw that the suspension bottle was almost finished, and it was time for her to leave, otherwise the nurse would see her when she came over. However, Luo Xian wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. As soon as she stood up, her wrist was controlled by a strong force. "Xiaoxin, don't leave." End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 514. Chapter 514 I'm not sick. Luo Xian froze when he heard this voice. Her pupils widened and she stood motionless. Xiaochuanhai woke up. When did he wake up? In other words, he had noticed her coming a long time ago. Was he just pretending? Xiaochuanhai saw that Luo Xian didn't move at all, but he could still clearly feel Luo Xian's body trembling slightly. And, the moment he called her name, Luo Xian's whole body went cold. Xiaochuanhai grabbed Luo Xian's warm arm, faced her back, and said word by word, "Xiao Xian, I know, you still love me, right?" Luo Xian was startled. She did not expect that Xiaochuanhai would suddenly ask this question. What she didn't expect was that after hearing this question, she would become so spineless and flustered, like a 17-year-old girl who had never experienced anything in the world. Luo Xian still retained her remaining sobriety and reason, and did not turn her head. She was also thankful that it was night and Xiaochuanhai could not clearly see the expression on her face. Luo Xian's face darkened and she responded to Xiaochuanhai's question in as light a tone as possible. "It's over between us a long time ago, please let it go." Xiaochuanhai frowned. Since the separation, there hasn't been a day when he hasn't missed them, mother and daughter, but what about Luo Xian? According to Xiaochuanhai's investigation, she traveled with those wealthy ladies every day and lived a very unhappy life. Xiaochuanhai thought that he was the only one who gave passively in this relationship, but fortunately, he was unwilling to give in after all, so he wanted to give it a try. He wanted to know whether Luo Xian really forgot about the relationship for so many years. Her presence here tonight is a good indication that she still cares about him in her heart. Xiao Xian, I know that what happened before was my fault and I was sorry for you. But, please give me another chance and give our relationship another chance. Xia Chuanhai continued, during the time I was separated from you, I really missed you all the time. Xioxin, do you still remember what I said to you? We are going to live a lifetime together. Luo Xian was choked up when she heard the last sentence. Yes, they had agreed to live together for the rest of their lives. However, it was he who broke their oath. From beginning to end, it was always him. I think you are in good health, not at all like what the outside world has said. I'm leaving, and Sakura is still at home waiting for me to come back. Luo Xian said, and went to pull Xia Chuanhai's finger. However, Xia Chuanhai's grip was very tight and Luo Xian could not break free no matter how hard he tried. Luo Xian became anxious and turned around to glare at him. Xia Chuanhai, let me go. This man does not look like a sick person, but he is still as strong as an ox. Don't let go. Xia Chuanhai had a determined expression and stared straight at Luo Xian. He was afraid that if he let go again, he would never see Luo Xian again. Today, he will solve all these problems. Xioxin, I'm not sick. As soon as Xia Chuanhai's words came out, Luo Xian was completely stunned, and he stayed in place without reacting. Xia Chuanhai continued, I am not sick, I just deliberately let the outside world spread like this. To make you think that I am sick, I just want to know whether you still have me in your heart. Xia Chuanhai still remembers when Luo Xian and Xia Ying rushed to his ward during the day. Xia Chuanhai, who was hiding somewhere, saw tears in the corners of Luo Xian's eyes, and her expression could not hide her worry. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 515. Chapter 515 Give each other another chance. Later, Xia Chuanhai deliberately arranged for his assistant to give the key to Luo Xian in order to test Luo Xian's feelings for him. Xia Chuanhai thought that if Luo Xian still loved him, he would fight for it again. If he doesn't love her anymore, he will be ready to let go and stop pestering her. But the result now is that Luo Xian still loves him and cares about him. How could he let her go? How to let go? Luo Xian softened her tone and looked at Xia Chuanhai with a cold face. Xia Chuanhai, do you think this is fun? It's not fun, Xia Chuanhai said lightly, especially when I know the result, it's even more fun. Xioxin, you still love me, we still love each other, why do you have to be so insistent? Won't you forgive me? Luo Xian bit her lip and made no sound, just silently holding back her tears. If you loved me, you shouldn't have gotten together with Xiao Yanhong in the first place. Xia Chuanhai was very disappointed after hearing this. He knew that Luo Xian would never be able to get over this hurdle. But, why not himself? Xiao Xian, I really drank too much that time and I don't remember anything. Xia Chuanhai didn't remember what happened that night at all. He only knew that he had been drunk a lot when she woke up. She was lying naked on the hotel bed with Xiao Yanhong. He himself was quite upset at that moment, but he was a man after all. Xiao Yanhong was still a young girl at that time. He felt ashamed of her and Luo Xian. During that time, he looked down on himself. However, Xia Chuanhai never expected that after that time, Xiao Yanhong would actually become pregnant and give birth to a girl for him. However, Xiao Yanhong hid it from him for 16 years before telling him about it, which later led to what happened to Xia Menjian. You know, drunk is just a cover. Drunk people don't have any evil thoughts at all except being drunk. You behave like that because you have such thoughts in your heart. Luo Xian said coldly. She had never seen Xia Chuanhai drunk before. He slept like a dead pig. Let alone go to bed, it is difficult to turn over. He blamed his fault on being drunk, which Luo Xian found ridiculous. Xiao Xian, am I so unbearable in your heart? Xia Chuanhai was very disappointed. From the beginning to the end, there is no other woman in my heart except you. After being with you, I have not touched any other woman. Xiao Yanhong, it's really an accident that I can't explain myself. Luo Xian bit her lip and said nothing. I am willing to spend the rest of my life making up for my mistakes, but are you willing to give me this chance? Xia Chuanhai spoke very sincerely, but Luo Xian kept his head down and remained silent. I want to go back. After speaking, Luo Xian turned around and prepared to leave. Xia Chuanhai did not stop her this time. Based on his understanding of Luo Xian did not refuse him, which meant he acquiesced. However, this acceptance takes some time. Since Xia Chuanhai spent 4 years in college chasing Luo Xian, now, he doesn't mind spending another 4 years to chase Luo Xian back again. At this moment, the Xia family. Xia Ying is staying in the study room with 11 Ju. 11 Ju is reading and Xia Ying is doing homework. When I went to Austria some time ago, I didn't do any homework at all. Now Xia Ying is going to start crazily making up for homework. Otherwise, by the time school starts, it will be too late. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 516. Chapter 516. He wants to pursue your mother again. At this moment, a figure appeared at the door. Xia Ying subconsciously looked up and saw that it was Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng was walking toward 11 Ju and Xia Ying with her long legs spread out. Yu Lingfeng, have you gone to see it? Yu Lingfeng sat next to Xia Ying, with an unpredictable expression on his face. How is it? Is he okay? Is he seriously ill? He is not sick. Yu Lingfeng's words not only made Xiaomu stunned. Even 11 Ju, who was reading quietly aside, immediately raised his head from the book. What, not sick? Xia Ying didn't know what to say to express her inner surprise. Yes, I'm not sick, Yu Lingfeng continued, besides, I also met your mother. My mother? Xia Ying was even more puzzled, shouldn't she? Xia Ying was halfway through speaking, and then she understood. It turns out that Luo Xian went to the hospital to visit Xia Chuanhai, but she just lied and said she went to a tea party. It seems that her mother's feelings for Xia Chuanhai have exceeded her imagination. Uncle Xia's secret plan to get sick this time is just a cover. He just wants to test whether your mother still has him in her heart. Yu Lingfeng said calmly. For an answer, he deceived the whole world. He willfully put his company's business worth hundreds of millions of dollars on hold and ignored it, just to get an answer from her. The Chinese New Year is coming soon, and Xia Chuanhai misses his family even more when he is alone. But fortunately, everything he did was not in vain, and he got the answer he wanted. When Yu Lingfeng went there, he happened to hide in a corner. At that time, Luo Xian had just arrived, so Yu Lingfeng stayed there without making a sound. He heard all their conversations and knew their feelings for each other. Yu Lingfeng told Xia Ying everything he saw and heard. Xia Ying was speechless in surprise. Xia Chuanhai loved her mother far more than she thought. What would you think if your father wanted to pursue your mother again? Yu Lingfeng looked at Xia Ying very sincerely. Xia Ying pursed her lips, thought for 2 seconds, and then said firmly, then I will definitely help. She knew that Luo Xian was not really happy during this period. Xia Ying was still blaming herself during the day as if she had done something wrong. Now, she finally had a chance to change her ways. If her parents really still love each other, then she will try her best to fight for their happiness for her mother's sake. Xia Ying wants her mother to be happy, and doesn't want her to pretend to be happy every day just to keep her from worrying, but actually feels bitter and lonely inside. She wanted to be truly happy, the kind of happiness that came from the bottom of her heart when she was with Xia Chuanhai. Yu Lingfeng smiled lightly, I knew you could. I was too reckless and not thoughtful before this time, let's take it as an opportunity for me to make up for my mistakes. Xia Ying said firmly. By the way, there is one more thing. Yu Lingfeng recalled the conversation between Xia Chuanhai and Luo Xian. Actually, I have always been very suspicious of one thing. The reason why Uncle Xia had a one-night stand with Xiao Yanhong back then was because Xiao Yanhong drugged him or something. If something really happened, it would be impossible not to have any impression at all. Since there is no impression at all, it means there is no consciousness, and there must be something fishy about it. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 517. Chapter 517. Xia Chuanhai is discharged from hospital. I have suspected this too. Xia Ying held her chin and said, at first, I always thought that my father had betrayed my mother, that Xiao Yanhong was the mistress, and that the one my father really liked was Xiao Yanhong. But gradually, now I realize, and slowly began to re-examine the incident back then. If he really loved his mother so much, he would definitely not have slept with Xiao Yanhong. Xiao Yanhong must have drugged him while he was drunk. So in the final analysis, Uncle Xia is just a victim. He himself is also helpless and blames himself for this matter. Yu Lingfeng recalled Xia Chuanhai's expression and tone just now, and sighed with some helplessness. Xia Ying didn't think so now. It turned out that Xia Chuanhai was framed from the beginning to the end. As for his feelings for Xia Menjian, it was just the most basic responsibility of a man. After all, Xia Menjian was his flesh and blood, and he couldn't just leave her alone. But he never thought that Xia Menjian was actually such a person in her heart. She never had any good intentions from the time she came to the Xia family. She only persecuted Xia Ying from the beginning to the end. Xia Chuanhai was discharged from the hospital. When he walked out of the hospital wearing a suit and followed by a group of tall men in suits and ties, the media reporters were all shocked. The person in front of me has bright eyes and a very energetic complexion. He looks majestic, and his every move exudes the domineering and demeanor of a successful person. It doesn't look like someone who is seriously ill and is hospitalized, nor does he look like someone who is about to die as reported by the outside world. What exactly is going on? However, when the group of media reporters rushed forward to prepare for the interview, they were blocked by a group of bodyguards. Xia Chuanhai walked firmly and showed no expression as he got into a Rolls-Royce and drove away. A bunch of confused media reporters were left behind. The answer he wants now has been obtained. The most critical thing at the moment is his company and career. Those businesses, whether they are still there or have been taken away by others. As long as he takes action, he will take everything back. Step by step, he will reach the throne of the commercial emperor of the imperial capital. Being the head of the four major families is his ultimate goal. However, Xia Chuanhai had just arrived at the door of the company, and a familiar woman came into view. Xia Chuanhai frowned, looking displeased as he stared at that person. Int. She wanted to approach him, but was stopped by the bodyguards. Xiao Yanhong has not changed. Although she has no source of income, she will never wrong herself. With all kinds of famous brand blessings on her body, she looks no different from an ordinary rich lady. In addition, she is diligent in taking care of herself, has fair and tender skin, and good facial features. She looks very charming no matter how she dresses up. However, for Xia Chuanhai at this moment, even if he were an immortal descending to earth, his heart would not even beat a beat. Now, in his eyes and heart, he only has logo xin. No matter how breathtakingly beautiful others are, it is useless. Xiao Yanhong read the news and knew that Xia Chuanhai was ill, so she rushed to Sidia without stopping. She originally just wanted to go to his company to inquire about Xia Chuanhai's situation, because she also knew that she could not enter Xia Chuanhai's ward. The hospital would not provide any information to a stranger like her. But she didn't expect that as soon as she arrived, she would meet Xia Chuanhai, who came to the company after being discharged from the hospital. Today, if your monthly ticket is over 50, there will be extra updates. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 518. Chapter 518. Invite him to celebrate the new year together. Deep down in Xiao Yanhong's heart, she has always had feelings for Xia Chuanhai. After all, he was the man she loved most when she was young. In the days that followed, Xiao Yanhong fell in love several times, but they all ended in vain. Those men are simply not as good as Xia Chuanhai. No matter who she was with, Xiao Yanhong would always compare that person with Xia Chuanhai, and the result was obvious. If Xia Chuanhai was really critically ill and dying, she still wanted to see him. Of course, there is one more important point. After all, Xia Menjian is Xia Chuanhai's daughter. If Xia Chuanhai really dies and the property is divided in the future, Xia Chuanhai will more or less share some of it with Xia Menjian. Even though Xia Chuanhai made it clear that he never wanted to see their mother and daughter again, blood is thicker than water, and family love cannot be given up. Xia Menjian is his daughter, and she cannot let go of this. Although Xiao Yanhong didn't know where Xia Menjian was at the moment, what she was doing, and whether she was doing well or not. Because after the last separation, Xiao Yanhong never saw Xia Menjian again. That girl has always been stubborn at heart. Xiao Yanhong knew that she must have tempered herself. She will definitely not appear again until she achieves a certain level of success. What are you doing here? Xia Chuanhai's tone was unusually cold. The bodyguard kept blocking Xiao Yanhong from letting her get close. Therefore, there was a distance between her and Xia Chuanhai. But even so, the unapproachable air exuded from Xia Chuanhai still made Xiao Yanhong a little scared. Chuanhai, I just want to know how you are doing. Have you recovered from your illness? Xiao Yanhong behaved particularly pitifully. Xia Chuanhai just said coldly, you can't die. If you have time, worry about yourself more. Xia Chuanhai said and walked towards the company. Xiao Yanhong stayed where she was and stared at Xia Chuanhai's back, her eyes darkened. Now that she is here, she will not leave easily. If it weren't for Xia Menjian's pig teammate last time, she wouldn't have ended up like this. According to her understanding of logo xin, after knowing that Xia Menjian was her and Xia Chuanhai's daughter, logo xin would definitely not be able to forgive Xia Chuanhai. Their current relationship must be fragile. Maybe, they have divorced and they may have other partners. Xiao Yanhong thought so, turned around and left. She lost completely in the first round, but now she will soon have new game chips. She wants to see if logo xin can beat her this time. Logo xin has been busy celebrating the new year recently. The servants have all gone home to celebrate the new year. Now only Xia Ying and the others are left in the Xia family. Logo xin is making some handicrafts, which she learned from the knitting class she took some time ago. It is also quite warm to use it to make interesting little things to hang at home. Xia Ying looked at logo xin with her face in her hands. Logo xin seemed to be in a good mood. The corners of her mouth were always curved, and her eyes were as gentle as water. Mom, have you ever thought about calling Dad over to celebrate the new year together? Xia Ying suddenly asked. Logo xin was startled, and when she met Xia Ying's clear eyes, it didn't seem like a joke at all. Logo xin stopped what she was doing and looked at Xia Ying. Are you serious? Have you forgotten what you said before? Xia Ying clearly showed that she hated Xia Chuanhai even more than she did before, So how could she suddenly want to invite him to celebrate the new year together? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 519. Chapter 519. He is also a victim. I just think that he would be very lonely alone, Xia Ying continued, and, sometimes I wonder whether he was just a victim of what happened back then, and he had no choice. Luo Xian frowned after hearing Xia Ying's words. Stop talking. Luo Xian has also been thinking about this matter these days. Sometimes she wonders whether she has gone too far and whether she should give him another chance. However, whenever she thinks of this matter, the faces of Xiao Yanhong and Xia Menjian always appear in her mind involuntarily. She still couldn't get over the hurdle in her heart. Luo Xian remained silent and didn't speak. Xia Ying knew that she must be very troubled in her heart. Therefore, I didn't keep asking questions to embarrass her. Luo Xian suddenly remembered that there was one thing she had not bought, so she was ready to go out again. However, as soon as she drove the car out of the garage, she spotted a black Rolls-Royce in front of her. She recognized the car. It was Xia Chuanhai's car. Luo Xian also personally helped him choose it, so he always cherished it very much. Luo Xian met Xia Chuanhai's eyes, and then Luo Xian lowered her head and started the engine. She didn't think about what Xia Chuanhai was doing, she was just completing her mission. However, when Luo Xian was on her way to the market, Xia Chuanhai was following her. Luo Xian looked through the rearview mirror and saw that Xia Chuanhai's car kept a close distance from her. After arriving at the market, Luo Xian got out of the car, and Xia Chuanhai parked the car and walked over to her. Before Xia Chuanhai could say anything, Luo Xian spoke first. Xia Chuanhai, what are you doing? Xia Chuanhai looked calm, stared at Luo Xian's beautiful face, and said word by word, I am pursuing you again. Luo Xian frowned, and for a moment she didn't know what to say in reply to him. Xia Chuanhai continued, Xiao Xian, since I was able to spend 4 years pursuing you in the past, I will do the same now. I will prove to you that my heart for you has never changed. Luo Xian didn't say anything, just lowered his eyes and turned to the supermarket behind him. During this period, Xia Chuanhai had been following her, always standing where she could see when she turned around. The same was true for Xia Chuanhai in the past. For a moment, Luo Xian felt like she was back in college. At that time, she was also secretly in love with the laughing boy who played basketball in the sun and sweated profusely. Luo Xian suddenly stood still when he thought of this, and the corners of his mouth became increasingly bitter. After purchasing things, Xia Chuanhai was still following Luo Xian closely. Luo Xian stood still, looked back at him, and asked, Xia Chuanhai, don't you have to go to work? Someone is taking care of the company's affairs. Unless something happens, I will always be free. Xia Chuanhai's words also imply that Luo Xian has a lot of time to pursue her. Luo Xian had no choice but to turn her head, trying not to turn around and pay attention to Xia Chuanhai behind her. Xia family. When Luo Xian got home, Yu Lingfeng happened to be blowing the wind at the window sill. Yu Lingfeng's eyes fell on the 2 cars below, one in front and one behind. Yu Lingfeng quickly recognized that it was Luo Xian and Xia Chuanhai's car. Yu Lingfeng frowned and then looked. After Luo Xian got out of the car, Xia Chuanhai took the things from her hand without saying a word, and then walked in front of Luo Xian, as if he was about to enter the house. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 520. Chapter 520. Let's have dinner at home today. Luo Xian followed Xia Chuanhai and turned pale with fright. What are you doing? Luo Xian wanted to grab something from Xia Chuanhai's hand, but Xia Chuanhai held it tightly and she couldn't get away. On the contrary, this made her get closer to him. Xia Chuanhai looked at Luo Xian from a close distance. She had not changed at all, and the look on her face was still the same as before. Luo Xian also felt that Xia Chuanhai was looking at her, and the scene was extremely ambiguous for a moment. Luo Xian raised her head, met Xia Chuanhai's gaze, and then hurriedly took a few steps back, keeping a certain distance from Xia Chuanhai. "Sakura, she doesn't want to see you, so don't go in," Luo Xian said lightly, with alienation and indifference revealed between every line. Xia Chuanhai, however, curled up his lips and smiled, pulled out the text messages on his mobile phone, handed them to Luo Xian to read, and then said, "Unfortunately, it was Xia Ying who invited me." Luo Xian was stunned. While she was amazed at the possibility of this happening, she had to force herself to believe in its authenticity. The text message with black text on a white background said it very clearly. "Dad, come to our house for dinner today." Xia Ying calls him daddy. Xia Ying always called him daddy when she was little. Later, when Xia Menjian appeared, the title changed to dad. In the end, she didn't even want to call him daddy. But now, Xia Ying called him dad again. It was obvious that Xia Ying began to forgive him. Luo Xian did not expect this result at all. When Xia Menjian appeared, Xia Ying's performance was much more intense than hers. There was no way she could accept Xia Menjian. Later, Xia Ying almost broke up with Xia Chuanhai. However, Luo Xian did not expect that Xia Ying would decide to forgive him so quickly. Luo Xian suddenly thought of what Xia Ying said to her a few days ago. She said that Xia Chuanhai was framed and he was also a victim. Now it seems that Xia Ying's words were full of hints, suggesting that she should forgive him. Luo Xian's face darkened, she calmed down the emotions on her face and said, "Since it was Xia Ying who invited you, then please do so." Xia Chuanhai smiled faintly and then entered the room. Luo Xian followed him, with an intriguing expression on his face. When Xia Chuanhai appeared, Xia Ying quickly greeted him with a smile, "Dad, you are here." Xia Ying's words "dad" almost made Xia Chuanhai's eyes red. He felt a burning sensation around his eyes. It had been a long time since Xia Ying called him daddy. At this moment, Xia Chuanhai felt like he was back when Xia Ying was a child. The crybaby who clings to him is back. Xia Chuanhai was still thinking about something, but Xia Ying quickly took the things in his hands and turned around to put them away. Yu Lingfeng walked up to Xia Chuanhai and said, "Uncle Xia." "Lingfeng." Xia Chuanhai looked around at Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng had not been seen for a while, and he looked a little more mature and steady. Furthermore, the fact that Xia Chuanhai can see Yu Lingfeng at home also shows that the relationship between Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying is unusual now. No matter how he tried to persuade Yu Lingfeng to come and live with them, Yu Lingfeng always went too far. Now that he is willing to come here, it must be because of Xia Ying. Although Xia Chuanhai's previous fiancée for Xia Ying was Jun Chenai, now it seems that she and Yu Lingfeng have more fun. He can naturally trust Yu Lingfeng's character, so whether it is Jun Chenai or Yu Lingfeng, as long as Xia Ying likes them, Xia Chuanhai has no objection at all. End of this chapter.